Relational organizing is the thing that we at Building Bridges really believe in the effectiveness and the power of it. And so we loved this quote that I believe came from a section in chapter 4. And relational organizing is more effective. It's not so much the medium, but the messenger that matters in driving turnout. And increasingly technologically powered in an impersonal world, the power of human connection still prevails. And so really loved that piece of this week's reading. And so to get us started, we're going to have Jamel give us a high-level summary so that it can refresh our minds if it's been a while since we read, or if you haven't had a chance to grab the book and read for yourself, no worries. Jamel's going to break it down for us. So take it away, Jamel.
Okay, so as we mentioned before, we're reading chapters 3 and 4 this week, David Pepper's book. And chapter 3 is entitled Dedicating Your Entire Footprint to Fight for Democracy. And we'll talk about what he means by footprint there. And chapter 4 is re-engaging voters on a mass scale. He starts out by, again, talking about Team A and Team D. Team D being Team Democracy and Team A being Team Authoritarianism. And he says right now, the scales are really tipped in favor of Team Authoritarianism, Team A, because of the way that they do things. And he points out that if you're comparing the approaches that Team D and Team A take, they're quite different. Team D leverages volunteers. That's a source of their power. Team A is leveraging not just their volunteers, but government and laws and tax dollars. They use the law against democracy. Team D focuses on swing states and swing areas. That's where they put most of their attention. Whereas Team A, the authoritarians, are focusing everywhere. They're not letting any battle go unfought. Team D is more sporadic in its efforts, whereas Team A is full-time. And Team D, in terms of the investment and financial support, a lot of it comes from charity and donations, whereas on the investment with Team A, a lot of it is corporate investments. So he says that we really need to change this balance, and some of that balance means figuring out how we as individuals use our own footprint, where we are in our work or school, in our neighborhood or community, our participation in civic organizations, religious organizations, social media, even the places that we shop, that we leverage our engagement with society in a way that we incorporate into that saving democracy, so that we're making it something that we do all the time and we're incorporating it into everything that we do. This is the way that we can save democracy, which involves registering voters, supporting pro-democracy candidates, holding officials accountable, and supporting pro-democracy ballot measures. All of this is absolutely necessary because we're facing right now Team A's efforts to really affect negatively voter participation through purging of voter registration, stricter voter ID laws, rolling back of early voting, voter intimidation, and most importantly, an additive on top of all of that is in light of all of these pushbacks against voter participation, disengagement from the members of Team D. So he then says, to deal with that disengagement, we really have to re-engage the folks who have been disinvested. And we need to do that in all sorts of ways in terms of registering voters, assisting voters, educating voters, reminding voters of the importance of Election Day, and continuing to engage with them post-election. And again, he says, we could do that by starting with our own individual footprints, our family and our friends, where we work, where we serve people, where we live in our neighborhoods, and through social media and our civic organizations. And he says, if we do that and we take it up collectively, then we're really scaling up in a way that can counter the way team authoritarianism has scaled up. So that's it in a nutshell. When I talked about the whole notion of fighting against voting disenfranchisement or making it easier to vote, um, we had an idea for a guest speaker who I'd like to mention right now, and then I'll turn it over to Wes to talk to her. But her name is Domonique Roy, and she comes to us from Fort Worth, Texas, where in Texas, prior to joining the workforce over the past couple of years, she was a student at Texas A&M Prairie View, a historically Black college and university in Prairie View, Texas. Um, they have been at the forefront of student activism in terms of getting the right to vote for students and places to vote. And she's going to talk to us about that. And I hope as well about some of the activism that she's done in terms of running a local campaign. We thought it would be great to bring her to us. Some of you may remember that a few books ago or several books ago, we had another student from Texas A&M Prairie View talk to us about what was going on campus now. Domonique was part of that, but she's also now taken what she's learned into the rest of the world. So Wes, I'll let you introduce Domonique to introduce herself and then engage in questions, and then we'll have time for everybody to have questions.
Thank you, Jamel, and appreciate that. I'm not going to say too much more, but Dominique is a Fort Worth native who, as Jamel mentioned, graduated from Prairie View A&M, and in that time while there, Dominique was very active in serving on local political campaigns and then also getting involved in extracurriculars on campus to fight voter suppression and stand up for student rights. And then, as we said, kind of, got engaged in campaigns. And so had the opportunity to be a part of Justice Court Clerk, a campaign in Waller County and for under the leadership of Judge Marianna E. Jackson. And so we look forward to learning more about Dominique's experience there. And if you all have questions for Dominique, please put those in the chat. And I'm going to stop it there. Dominique, I believe you have the ability to turn your mic on. And so go ahead, expand on that introduction, and then we'll get started with the Q&A.
Yes, hello everyone. Again, my name is Domonique Roy, and also thank you so much for Wes and Jamal for inviting me here and allowing this space for everyone to come. And again, thank you for inviting me. I am Domonique Roy. I graduated from Prairie View A&M University and from with my bachelor's in political science in 2021. During my time, as the bio stated, that I did fight against a lot of voter suppression, and as well as just getting a lot of voter awareness to the students on campus. With that, we did experience and have a lot of bit of challenges and obstacles that have came our way through our fight for that. But of course, nothing stops determined Prairie View students and just college students in general. So with that, I have experienced a lot of great things that I have pushed and traveled with my experience as a justice clerk, and now as a municipal clerk, just continuing to grow that out and still trying to learn how to fight against that, and especially in Texas where those rights are always under threat. So it's vitally important for these spaces. So thank you again.
Well, we appreciate you taking time here. And so, my question for you is, what was that spark? Or can you identify a particular moment that catapulted you into taking action and getting involved?
That really started really before I even came into college. While I was in high school, I attended Arlington Heights High School in Fort Worth, and I was a very focused on fine arts and dancing. I wanted to be a dance major. So that was very on my focus. But my senior year was 2017, and that's when our 45 was elected, and a lot of my reality and things like that was very rocked and under a bit of a dream for the past 8 years. And again, when Obama came in, I was 9 when he came in, so with me really about to embark into the real world, that was a reality check. And I really needed to understand what was going on in government and how to explain what was going on, because I was just confused and frustrated, but I didn't know how to explain it. So I just thought, well, what about let me just do something? Because I've always had a love for history. I've always had a love for just political issues, even in dance. So I was like, well, let me figure out something that I can um, understand what's going on while still having an interest. And that's when I decided to go into political science.
Very cool. And, so having that, yeah, I believe you said kind of your foundation rocked, um, our 45th president's election. I think many here can probably relate to that. Then you get onto campus at Prairie View A&M. And what what happened, or what was that first action that you took, and why did you take it, to activate not only yourself but your peers?
Well, the first one that I could truly remember was when Beto came. That was the first candidate that I actually had some type of personal interaction with and was able to feel seen and heard with. And during that time, we were fighting for having a voting location on campus. So during that time, we were working on um, where we were working on trying to coordinate, there we go, a march on campus to fight against that and to bring awareness always about what's going on with Waller County. Because even before coming in, before I truly understood what Prairie View was, Sandra Bland was always the first thing that somebody would bring up to me for Waller County. So that was always in the back of my mind when we were fighting against that. But yeah, it was really Beto, because that was my first time really voting. That was my first time truly voting into any, I call it a big girl election. So, so yes, that was really like I felt like an adult. I felt like I was truly a part of civil engagement.
Um, think I when you said feeling seen and heard, I had to put that in the chat because that is so critical. I think in that, because Pepper kind of talks about re-engaging or reigniting folks, and I can't think of a better way to do so than making folks feel that they are seen and heard. So love that.
Absolutely.
So as you got activated, you had that action before you got onto college campus, and then also once getting onto campus you had moments of that propelled you forward. And so what lessons have you learned in your organizing activism journey? Like, what are some key takeaways?
Perseverance, really. Not everybody is going to understand you or even agree with you just because you're just doing it and you're just changing their normalcy. A lot of people are just used of their own routine. So when you have young adults or young people that are always coming in with bright ideas, sometimes that can be a bit of a challenge. But if you are very dedicated in what you believe in and you're still dedicated even to the people that are not even for you, then you can keep on going. And that's what I learned, because with that, I'm a Fort Worth native. I've always been with my family. I am the youngest of my family, so going away even just 3 hours was a culture shock for me. So just learning how to adapt in a new world and learning how to adapt in a country, in a little country versus Fort Worth, you're having to understand different issues and then be sensitive to different issues. So now coming back into the city, I have a broader appreciation and a broader understanding of different types of issues in the world. So I'm just not stuck in city girl mindset.
So perseverance and being sure to listen and learn. That's what I'm hearing.
Absolutely. And being open-minded. Absolutely.
Mm. Um, so I know I we had a question here in the chat, and so and you kind of spoke on it to a little degree, but voting in Texas, particularly as a student on a college campus. Can you kind of talk more about that situation and then what you and your peers did in terms of persevering through that barrier that was thrown at you by your state government?
We did a lot of things. Most of it was we just had to be really creative because again, within this world of social media and just things being attention grabbing, we had to do incentives, and which was some things we did like parties. If you voted and you had your sticker or a receipt, then you were able to come into like a little student party on the campus. So little things like that, and with that, it was not just like a party, but it was other organizations coming together, like our poetry or different clubs coming together. But it was just a way for us to socialize and bring people in. Other issues were transportation. So if they were putting locations at one point, they had voting locations on our Waller County Community Center, but if you see where our university is, that is a very far walk and very much of a hassle for students that are working, students that don't have cars and just have things to do. So they just make it very difficult. So we did carpools. You register, we had vans, we had people that were volunteering their own cars, and we just did it like that, just an old school way. We just figured things out. But a lot of things like that was just mainly social media and protest. We did that.
And kind of a follow-up question, what impact from your efforts and still I'm sure you're still connected to campus life and whatnot, what effect did your work have on student engagement?
So with that, we are now allowed to have voting on campus for a whole week, and it is located within the MSC, and that is the Memorial Student Center. So that's just the main traffic area where people come in, even visitors that come in, um, community people, because again, the university is in the heart of Prairie View. So that's we're able to still do that. I know that even they still do have voting locations on not campus, at the community center. But I was also a volunteer firefighter in Prairie View, and I know that the judge that I worked under, her husband is the chief, so she has a lot of connections everywhere. So with the fire department, we were able to use some of our trucks and some of the people there to carpool people to the community center. So we're always finding some type of way to bringing the community and the students together to work together.
I love that. And Mary Beth just put a question in the chat that I think is great. So as you were doing these activities, did you form like, were you part of a student organization? Did it kind of just happen organically or grassroots
Mhm.
wise? And based on how you answer, was there any pros or cons that you learned as you continued your advocacy as you went about whatever organization you went under?
Well, it was a mixture of a lot of organizations coming together. So we've had Student Government Association, we've had NAACP, we had just volunteer groups that students organized their own selves and created. Just it was just mini clubs that came together that were able to do that. And through that, of course, our friends created our own group called PSP, Political Science Posse. So then we started to do our own thing, which were able to just bring candidates in to speak. I was part of another organization called the Panther Party, which we brought candidates and invited candidates from both parties, and they were able to be like on a hot seat and to speak and answer questions from the students and or community. So yeah, we were just a lot of community building.
Very cool. And I am kind of curious, you said members of the community could come to those little hot seat discussions. Was there collaboration with the actual city that Prairie View is located in? I don't know if it's Prairie View, so I'm
It is.
not
Mm-hmm.
okay.
Mm-hmm.
Was there a lot of collaboration with the college students, you all, and the community already there, or what did that look like?
Can you say that question again? Really the
Yeah, so
yeah.
did you collaborate with the Prairie View community outside of campus too, or was it mainly, college student driven?
Oh yes, we worked with the community as well. Prairie View is very small, so we have to join with the community, and a lot of the community are alumni of Prairie View that are a class of 50, class of 60. So they are very eager to always come together. And then they actually like it because some of our organizations were volunteer based, and we would go to the community and do little chores around for the elderly of the community. So we're always finding some type of way to bridge that gap.
I love that element of service within our quest to strengthen and expand democracy. Love it. Um, so, obviously there's a lot of collaboration going on. And kind of organically, working with already established organizations, coming up with some new ones. Um, as you're doing this work, I mean, bringing many people together, that is no small task. And
Right.
so
Mhm.
what did you find was, because I'm sure there's folks in here who maybe are in that work already, whether it's on a college campus or not, or what they're thinking about how they can activate in their communities. So as you're working with others, um, how do you make collaborations on such a big scale? How do you make that possible? What tips can you share with us on making sure we're good collaborators? Because the reality is, if we're going to do something, there's probably someone else who is already doing it or wants to do it.
Mhm.
So how can we all work together effectively?
That's always a good question because I always have to ask myself that too. Because of course, working with people is a very tedious task. But again, it's just about being dedicated to what you're wanting to do and just coming up with different ways to communicate. Again, with us, we are very tech savvy. So it's very easy to, if I can't physically be with you because of somebody's schedule, we can do what we're doing now, or we can do voice memos, or we can go on, have just different Google Docs. I've had that because some people just can't physically be there. So we've typed it out. So it's just being consistent and trying to find different ways to communicate and be understanding over different people's beliefs or different ways to get to the same goal. It's different ways to get to the same place. So try to understand commonalities and not focus on the differences.
I love that. And that said in the chat, I'm impressed with your collaboration because it is very difficult. And yeah, that
Mhm.
is huge kudos to you and your peers on making that possible. And so let's kind of transition because you did get involved with the campaign and you kind of
Mhm.
mentioned the judge that you worked with. And so what were some barriers as you were working and helping on this campaign? And yeah, so what barriers did you run into? And then my second question will be, and you can, if you want to focus on barriers first, and then like what ways did you counter those barriers? So yeah, go ahead.
Some of the barriers that I focused on was again with my judge that I worked under. She was the first Black woman to be the judge for JP3. And that's always a challenge of being the first. So, in our office, it was nothing but Black and minority women, or just people in that office. So, yeah, we sometimes can be the center of attention a little bit. So, with that, we have to be focused on what we're doing and make sure that we're doing it right. Under the election, we would find little things, as in like signs being taken away or being moved, or false information being given out, as in when primary elections are, and things like that. But just again, being steadfast on what you're wanting to do and being on top, and then not meet with the ignorance, because again, sometimes politics can be entertaining, and we need to bring back the seriousness of politics. So just again, staying focused to the mission and not the distractions that's going on.
Appreciate that. And then what made you want to get, because it's one thing to, help fight voter suppression, voter disenfranchisement, but like getting onto a campaign, like similarities, differences between kind of activism versus campaign life and work.
Well, yes, because you have to. Some of the similarities of activism work and campaigning is you're fighting for a cause. So if the candidate that you're working under should match the values of what you believe in, so you can truly work hard and truly believe in the person and their beliefs to make sure that they win. But then as well is that I had a thought. I'm sorry, but as well with that, you just have to also just. I don't know. I'm sorry. I lost my train of thought again. I'm so sorry about that.
So, yeah, like differences between being an activist, working on a campaign, similarities, like did you have to change your mindset or, you know,
Right. Yes, I would have to change my mindset and, of course, change my approach to it, because, again, when you're focusing on a topic, you can speak about yourself. But when you're on a campaign, you're representing that person. So there's some things that I would want to say or want to address or want to defend. But again, this is not about me. This is about this individual, and expanding what they want to continue to do or start in this position. So really remembering, and again, commonalities of that is also being selfless. You can't think about yourself all the time in political work or just activism, because you're not going to get far at all.
love that. So I'm actually trying to pull this up to see if I can and Janelle kind of gave like a little intro into chapter the first part of Pepper's book. And so in um in week one, I'm curious how you'll answer this, not only as, you know, as a younger person. And so, given the current political state that we are in, what are you feeling and believing when it comes to American democracy and its ability to be recitated? Like, do you feel like, yeah, we can get there? We just need a few wins to get us back on track. Yeah, but it's going to take a while. No, there's no way to stop this backsliding, or no, we're too far gone. Where are you at with that? And what, yeah, I'll stop there because I'm curious to see how you answer.
Sometimes it's according to what's going on in the world, actually, about how my answer is, or according to the topic. If we're talking about gun violence, mass shooting, sometimes I feel that we're too deep into it, because the NRA, or just the gun culture, and especially as a Texan, some of that culture is just too deep and rooted into people. It's very hard to separate and get people to see the bigger picture than their own personal goals or personal interests. Um, but in a overall aspect, I never want to give up on the idea of change because anything could be possible. People, again, during the civil rights movement, never thought that we were able to come this far. So I would never say that we can't do it, but we just have to change our approach to things. And if that means that a new generation may have to do that, then so be it. But we're forever changing, if you like it or not.
Well, and I think will a new generation have to come in and do things? Well, it's too late. Y'all already are. And I didn't even know that. I knew about, Texas kicking off on campus voting locations. So I did not know that because of your work and others' work that now voting has returned back to college campuses. And so,
Right. From the
um,
70s case.
mhm. And I'm a public school teacher, and so I feel you on the crisis of gun violence within our
Right.
country. When we're doing drills every other month, it feels like. But it is because
And
of
now
you.
the Alabama case ruling, or I think it was Alabama, or
Yep.
yeah.
On
So it's
IVF.
just, yeah,
Yeah.
it's a lot. I
But it
feel that
is young people.
we go around the actual thing to actually fix it. Like we don't want to actually fix it. We want to pacify everything else to make it seem that we're fixing it.
Well, I can't speak on it for everyone here, but the young people give me hope, and hearing from you gives me hope, and the action that you and your generation take, that gives me hope. As we like to say in a group chat,
Appreciate
the kids are all right, and they're going to be all right.
it. Absolutely.
Uh, I think Mary asked this question, and I really liked it. Um, where is it? How do you measure success? As you've been an activist, and I'm sure there's highs and lows. So, how do you measure success in your organizing and activism work?
Well, you're talking to a perfectionist, so sometimes I never feel like anything is good enough, personally. But again, taking yourself out of it and focusing on the betterment of people. If somebody is coming to you and saying that really helped me, or seeing young people marching from Waller County, from the Prairie View campus to Waller County, all together in the heat, that really inspired me to get more involved with Prairie View, then that feels like a success. Now, you may not get everything that you wanted on your 10-point plan, but just making sure that people are getting engaged so one day you can.
Hmm. I appreciate that. Sorry, I was trying to. Annette asked what
Chat.
was drilling, so I was trying to find
Mhm.
a quick. You were alluding to the IVF decision.
Yes.
Okay.
IVF, and as well as the teachers being allowed to carry guns.
Okay. Well, and Nebraska just agreed to that as well. However,
Right.
we did get it amended to at least say um, the rationale was it needed to be out in very rural areas where, the county sheriff or law enforcement would only be
Not
like
too far
30
away.
miles out. Yeah. So,
Okay. So like Waller, Monaville. Yeah.
had a discussion
Yeah.
with a Democrat senator who helped pass that, and that was a big rationale he wrapped his head around to support it, but not sure where I stand, but
Right.
appreciate.
Right. I don't know
And
where I stand on that.
yeah, guns are bad. That's all I can say.
Right.
And America's got a gun obsession problem. And
They do.
awesome. Well, so now you're kind of returning back to Fort Worth, correct?
Yes.
So what's next for you? You're kind of moving from that college space and time of life and now moving back to your hometown. And so what's next? Like what's got your gears going?
Well, that is a very good question. And I would love to say to be continued because, I really don't know. And as a 20-year-old, 24-year-old, that's always the question that I ask myself because I have so much ideas and many goals for myself and for my community and for America. But I know I want to infuse my love of fine arts because even though I am very thankful for going to Prairie View and choosing political arts, I'm still a creative at heart. And sometimes being in a structured world and in a world that you have to be politically correct as a creative, that can be very depressing in a way. And I'm just trying to figure out how to bring that aspect back into politics because fine arts has always been an expression for protest, for political change, policy awareness. So I'm just really trying to figure out how to infuse those two.
Well, we will be excited because I know you will find what that answer looks like. And it looks like Gil has their hand raised. And so Gil, you'll get a message asking you to turn your mic on. So if you click on that, then you should be able to ask. And it looks like you're unmuted.
Okay, I've been working with a small group of friends, and we've come up with 15 action items that we think are pretty good for just about anybody to do. It's oriented toward Dallas County, particularly at this point. Would it be appropriate for me to post that in the chat? And I'd like to get some feedback. I'll post my email address also.
Absolutely. Go ahead and post that. And so, Dominique and anyone else who has thoughts, feel free to respond to that. And yeah, I love it. Thank you, Gil, for taking action.
Thank you.
Amen.
Ooh, and Amelia, yeah, art and social justice, and Dominique already spoke. Those two worlds are huge. I was an arts kid growing up, and I really love sports too. And I can't
Right.
think arts world and the sports world. Oof, having that political history on social justice and change. There's a lot there.
Right.
All right. Seeing if I find any other questions there. But truly, Dominique, one, thank you. Thank you for the actions that you have taken, to spur change in your community and on your campus. And also I hope you're celebrating and recognizing that the change you and your peers made not only made a difference for you all in that moment, but are making differences for the future generations that step foot on Prairie View's campus. And so huge kudos to what you all did. So let's give her a
Thank
round
you.
of applause.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for your time, and you are more than welcome to stick around and learn more. I will tell you, this is a nice little book, and it's rather, I found it more affordable sometimes because it's not a hardcover. It's paperback.
Right.
But yeah, feel free if you would love to stick around and talk because I'm sure you have some. When Jamel talked about the footprints, I'm sure you
Yeah.
all talk strategized around that as you were all doing your work. So thank you
Yes.
again so much. And if you need to go, we understand, but would love to have you if you can stay on. Okay.
I will. I will. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Well, I am going to go back to sharing my screen here, and I'll get back to the PowerPoint. And, and to get us started, and I'm not going to share my screen because we are going to get us going with a poll question. And so I'm going to get that activated. Boop. All right, so you should see a window popping up on your screen. So how effective are political party efforts to get you to engage in pro-democracy activities, such as voting, volunteering, being an informed voter, making donations, or whatever it may be? Do you find political party efforts to be effective, somewhat effective, not effective, or counterproductive? And we are already at nearly 70% participation in under 45 seconds. So I love to see that. And if you are not finding that Zoom pop-up, you can also put your response in the chat. Either way works. And we are at now at over 80% participation. So going to give it about 20 more seconds and then I'll share the results. So how effective is political party efforts to get you to engage in pro-democracy activities? All right, so we hit the minute and a half point. I'm going to end the poll and now I'm sharing the results. So hopefully you see that window. So we had great participation. Overwhelmingly, folks are saying political parties are somewhat effective at engaging us in pro-democracy activities. It was rather close between effective and not effective. So if anyone has thoughts on this, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and feel free to pop thoughts in your chat as to why they're only somewhat effective. And maybe someone can talk about ways that they were really effective or whatnot. So does anyone want to turn their mics on and share some things? All right. And I know the name is not neighbor to neighbor, but that's what I see on the screen. So remind me your name because I remember your face.
Ah, that's me.
Yeah.
It's Georgianne. I'm not,
Jan, thank you.
I don't know why it says that. I have tried to work with the Democratic Party whenever there's a candidate I'm particularly interested in. And except for Beto O'Rourke, which I have to say ran an incredible campaign. Most campaigns, they seem to have really bad advice from their very expensive consultants. And for instance, I'm always asking them, I live in New Jersey. I do a lot of work in Pennsylvania, right across the river. And I'm always saying, send me to somewhere with Spanish speakers, because I speak Spanish. They cannot find a Hispanic voter in Pennsylvania to tell me about. Now, this is total hogwash, but they can't seem to do it. So I'm frequently very frustrated with the Democratic Party, and I do not send the Democratic Party any money. I give away a lot of money, but not to them.
Now you mentioned Beto's campaign, and what did they do that was effective?
Well, I wish that Dominic was still here because she was a lot closer to it. I was a virtual helper, but they brought it down to really on the street level. They had block captains. They had thousands of people that opened their homes to be centers for canvassing information. And they would be open like, 8 hours a day for weeks on end to encourage people to come and get turfs and lit. And I just thought they did so much better than normal. And yet I can almost guarantee there's no Democratic Party consultant that ever studied Beto's campaign.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing. Appreciate it, Georgianne. All right, we're going to get Annette's mic turned on.
I didn't even know how to answer the question. I know that the Democratic Party doesn't motivate me to be active, the Democratic Party per se. I'm active because I'm terribly concerned about what's happening in our country. But in terms of the party and how effective they are, they're not effective with me too much. So I was like, do I answer, am I affected or is the general population affected? So that's why I answered not effective.
Fair enough. Appreciate it. Welcome, Robin.
Hey y'all. I put not effective. Pro-democracy organizations are a little better than the party, but I don't know jack squat about the Democratic Party in my area. I don't get anything from them directly about all of the candidates underneath a particular party or underneath the party. I do sometimes get literature from pro-democracy and progressive organizations where they'll have, their electorate guide or whatever. But a lot of times I have to do research on my own and go about finding the information on my own.
Thank you for sharing. Appreciate it. Someone, and I have already lost it because the chat is full of great thoughts and whatnot. But someone asked, what is an effective party? And so if you find that in the chat, would love your responses there. Molly, go ahead.
Thank you. I come from the Baton Rouge, Louisiana area, and our Democratic Party is miserable, and a lot of us have tried to work hard to do things, and we just can't, get protection. And our Democratic Party leaders.
Hey, Molly, I'm just letting you know the sound is coming in and out. There's moments where it was clear and then moments when I couldn't. So I want to make sure we're able to hear your thoughts.
Hold on.
Oh, that was clear right there.
My mic doesn't work. Anyway, can you hear me now?
It's worse now. It's soft.
I'm sorry.
You're okay. We're going to give you time to figure that out. And in the meantime, Barbara, go ahead.
Yeah, hi. So I belong to a Democratic Women's Club, and I just wanted to say that I think sometimes the message that I hear from some Democrats is more, they try to be more middle of the road. And I think that a lot of people feel either one way or the other. They feel either really progressive about the issues, or they feel more conservative about the issues. And so staying with the middle of the road kind of makes the message sound watered down a lot of the time. And the other thing I wanted to comment on is about not endorsing candidates. And pretty much what I've learned from being affiliated with the party is that they won't endorse candidates until after the primaries, because often there is more than one candidate competing within the same party, and they don't want to choose one over the other, until there's a settled candidate. And then after that, they will endorse candidates, and then you'll be able to get slate cards and know which ones are the candidates that they support. So I just wanted to comment on that.
Thank you. Molly, gonna give it a go again.
Thank you. Now can you hear me?
Ooh, beautiful.
When I hook my mic up, my external mic, it works a lot better. What I was going to say is, Louisiana, has just gone so red, as you all know, and it's sad. But there are a lot of us that are Democrats, but the Democratic Party is just in shambles here. They don't organize. We just recently voted out our Democratic Party leader because the person they had for the last 4 years wasn't effective at all. But what I was going to say, I've seen the Republicans do in Louisiana is they are organized like crazy. They have block people. They have people involved. They give money. They, lobby the legislature more effectively. We have a lot of people here that lobby and do stuff. I work the polls. I go to meetings sometimes at the Capitol. I do whatever I can, but it's so disheartening because we don't get a lot of support because the National Democratic Party has written us off. as just a red state, which I understand, believe me. It's frightening what's happening with our governor here, Jeff Landry. If y'all haven't heard of him, he makes Ron DeSantis look like Snow White. And it's frightening what he's doing. It's really scary. And so, we try to do things. I mean, and it's just, I think somehow there's got to be more unity. And I just found out about this book and this book club, because I happened to buy a mug off of Facebook through the Democratic Party that was about Joe Biden and a hot coffee thing. And then I got this link to all these things I've signed up for to try to get more engaged and to volunteer on a national level. So whatever we can do to boost, the whole structure needs more work. I think somehow people have got to be more engaged in a regional level, local level, and get people engaged.
It sounds like digital ads worked as well. A digital ad for a coffee cup, and then boom, come to a book club. Love it.
And I bought the coffee cup too, just because.
Nice.
Thank
All
you.
right. And and Jamel makes a great point, is we have to invest locally and state-wise. And so please know that as you are taking action, whether it's part of the political party or not, by you doing that, that shows folks who have that money, people are ready. And we always kind of talk about this book club. We are completely volunteer ran, and we just advertise it through social media, and it helps spark and immobilize and engage folks, that come. And it's a small and mighty crew of not only this book club, but the work that we do as building bridges. And just imagine a little bit more money or a little more support, what that could do. But we're doing it, and we keep getting bigger and bigger. So love it. All right. Thank you, Molly, for sharing. I am going to share my screen, and we are going to go to our very first question over chapters 3 and 4. Take it away, Peg.
Thanks, Wes. And I think this kind of goes with the whole topic of what our discussion has been so far, from Domonique right up to talking about the poll. Have you ever been engaged by political volunteers? When and where have you been engaged? And what other places or situations would be good for engaging others to encourage voting? Wes, Kate's hand is up.
Hi there. So I think one of the most impressionable things about engaging me was an actual candidate came to my house and did door-to-door canvassing. And I was shocked. I said, wait, are you the actual candidate? I had never met him. He was new to the position. And I was really just super impressed. I'm in North Carolina, and I know Jeff Jackson did that. He went to every county that he was running in when he was running for the new District 14, which he has been gerrymandered out of. But I think it really makes a difference when candidates show up face to face. And I think that having events where you're not just necessarily canvassing door to door, but having events where candidates can show up, whether it's, local, city council, county council, any other type of candidates, I think it's important that they show up as well and show that they're interested in talking to you personally and basically letting you know what they stand for. I think it's important.
Thank you, Kate. Very important points, very important information to remember.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Hi,
I,
Becky.
yeah, hi. I remember in, I think it was 2022, my local Democratic Party had, I think they called it a volunteer palooza, but they had it in September. And I think in a presidential election year like this, they need to have it sooner, something like that. But it would be good to do that again where they had people meeting candidates and stuffing envelopes for people and networking and lots of stuff like that. And I wound up knocking on doors for some of the candidates. And uh, I hope they do something like that again. And oh, our city has, I don't know for how many years they've done this. They've had a public Labor Day picnic where anybody can come and there's labor representatives there. And there were people there uh, letting the public know about this volunteer palooza with the Democratic Party.
Thank
It's
you,
just an
Becky.
idea.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, thank you for that information.
And Peg, I see Preston has his physical hand raised, so I'm going to ask him to unmute for you.
Okay, thank you. Preston?
Good evening, everyone. How they doing?
Good.
I like this tie in what the speaker just said. You can have a politician can have what they call a meet and greet, um, meaning that a group of politicians who are running office to come to a particular setting, and then people voting for them to come meet them and you know get their names and have small conversations on what their policies and what they stand for, and get business cards out possibly from from, if I'm an audience, give a business card out, and then you can ask the politician's business card in return if he has one. It's so you can probably hold a conversation later at a date when you have time in your free time. Maybe call them up, maybe 2 or 3 days later and say, can we meet over lunch and discuss policies and issues that way? That is another way that you can get to know policy issues of politics. Thank you.
All right, those follow-ups, Preston, are very, very important. Jamal, is your hand raised to add a comment or a question, or is it still just up?
No, it is raised on purpose. So I'm just going to say, one of the things that he mentions in the book is sometimes it's door to door, and when we live in neighborhoods where we're in individual houses, but there's a lot that can be done with people who live in apartment houses or closer communities where I think that he was pointing out in terms of scaling up your efforts, there's a lot that is not done there. And I just remember I had a good friend who he didn't live in a particular apartment complex, but he chose as part of some of his activism to go to one of the larger apartment complexes in the neighborhood and basically get their permission and set up a table, on the weekends to be in the lobby and just encourage people to vote. And this particular apartment complex had a lot of younger people, a lot of newer Americans, and I think he was part of a very successful campaign to engage people. And When we talk about where else can you do things, um, uh, spread yourself out a little bit, or ask if there are efforts where you might be able to get involved in reaching out to people who live in apartments or other communities.
And I have my own hand raised just to add a quick comment before we go on to your question, Jamal, is I've actually seen post-election, usually you see signs out, roadside signs, things like that, and they're up there and they don't get taken down for some time. But I've seen candidates who have been elected actually put a thank you for voting sign up. Sometimes candidates have won, sometimes they have not, but they'll put a thank you for voting sign up and then they'll include their name. And I just think the post election communication is vitally important. And Pepper mentions that in this book too.
Okay, should we move on to the next question?
I think so.
Okay, so and because we had a speaker, we're running a little bit short of time, but Wes is sharing this on the screen. We keep talking about the footprint, and if you haven't gotten the book yet, what's really nice is that throughout the book, he actually uses the footprint visually, and he depicts what he means by what's in there. That your family, your friends. He uses church, we use religious organization, the fact that you're a regular customer, your social media, participation in a labor union, school, volunteerism, all of that. But not all of these things are the same. And so a question that we have for the group is, if you're out there fighting for democracy, which parts of your footprint, looking at this, are you most comfortable using? And which parts might you be not comfortable using? And then maybe we could talk about how to create more comfort in some of those places. So that's the question. When you look at this, what are some of the aspects of what you do that you feel more comfortable using in terms of a fight for democracy to engage with others? And which are some things that you will probably avoid because you're not comfortable using it? So let's see, Wes, if you can, there we go, see if there are hands up with respect to that. Robin, I'm going to ask you to unmute.
I think the easiest is my friends circle, because they hold a lot of the same ideals that I do, and they're kind of used to me being passionate about things. But also they know that I like to do research and have information. So a few years ago, one of my friends called me up shortly before the election, and she was like, "Who are all these people? Who am I supposed to vote for?" And she knew, because she knew that I had done the research. So I kind of gave her like the Cliff Notes version of the candidates and was like, well, this candidate does this and blah, blah, blah. So in that way, when I know my friends are like really busy with work and other things in their life, because this is something that I can do, and because I know that I trust them and they trust me, this is one way that I was able to use my footprint to kind of share information about candidates.
That is really cool, Robin. And I'll tell a story. I basically have been one of those people who's called somebody up and basically said, I know you're pretty active. Tell me about this. Tell me what I need to know. And the funny thing is, I did that because I felt comfortable. But gosh, that person or if you just send out a group blast message to your friends and just say, hey, does anybody does anybody need a briefer beforehand? You can probably encourage a few more. Jacqueline, I'm going to ask you to unmute.
Yeah, hi. I think I feel most comfortable in a lot of those. The one I don't feel comfortable in is work. I work at a university which is considered part of the state, so state government working. So it's not something that I feel, even on breaks, or I feel a little, I just won't do it. It's more of, you know, not just because it's a state government position, but also you got to work with these people every day. And unless they come up and ask me, I'm not going to make an effort at work to do that. Anywhere else, call me, you can text me, sitting next to me at a diner or something like that. I'll talk with you. Yeah, that's fine. I'm not at work.
Jacqueline, I'm really glad that you raised that, because I think that a lot of it depends on the workspace. I feel the same way you do in terms of that, and I'm even in a place where it sometimes comes up, but I still feel a little bit shy about that. We've got Chris Gordon. I'm going to ask you to unmute.
I'm very active in the Wisconsin Democratic Party, very active in the county party where I reside. I'm also a candidate for state assembly, and I'm super comfortable talking with my community members, my neighbors, about politics in a public forum. I am also very active in my church, and I am not at all comfortable engaging with my church community about political issues, because there's such a strong misperception of what it means to be progressive, and what my church community believes are the values held by progressives. And it's too much work to try to educate them about, we are not being in support of women's health care does not mean you are pro-abortion. And there's such a negative perception that, being in support of health care for women means that I think abortion is a great idea and I'm out endorsing everybody getting an abortion. There's just and it's the idea of being a progressive is very much in line with my Christian values, my Catholic values, and Catholic social teachings, except for the question of abortion, and that is just so difficult.
Thank you for sharing that, Chris, in terms of being very open about why it's difficult in some places. I'm going to ask Wes Wes can unmute himself. But as Wes is raising that, I think if any of you have been in a situation where you have figured out how to get around some of that discomfort, or if you're comfortable in a space where others have expressed that they wouldn't be comfortable, maybe you could share how you got comfortable. Go ahead, Wes.
Yeah, so I put in the chat, we have a training that is, I don't know if they use the footprint model, but I'm hopefully that our training leaders, they should start. And so I put in a link to a training that we do, and I don't remember when the next one is, but it's how to be politically active. And so literally you brainstorm your footprint, and then they also give you the skills, particularly in those spaces within your footprint that you are not comfortable speaking in. And I will tell you this, whether it's a part of your footprint that you are comfortable or whatnot, but the number one thing that I have found, particularly with my mother, who, we weren't really on the same side, but I think that in my journey of becoming my true self and coming out to my family helped in that way. And I think it's telling your story and telling your reason why. And so, as our previous speaker was talking about, their faith community. And I think that, you know, start small. It doesn't have to be to everyone, but maybe it's that one person who you go to those faith events with on a consistent basis, and just kind of like, oh, have you been thinking about who you're gonna vote for, or have you heard of this? And then just sharing your personal story, because when you share your personal experience, no one can argue that. No one can take that away. And if they do so, well, don't spend any time, go away from them because it ain't worth it. But that's what I have found in those situations, like with my mother, as to, you know, the conversation wasn't going anywhere. When I personalized it and shared how it personally affects me, that I think was a big catalyst. And then also realizing conversations aren't going to change overnight with people, particularly if they aren't coming in with the same perspective as you. And so being willing to have that conversation over and over again. So those are two things that I have found to help, you know, enter into those spaces I'm not comfortable in, and then also seeing some progression. So
Thanks, Wes. Robin, I'm going to ask you to unmute.
I think an area that can be difficult for a lot of people is work. When I was working in retail, it could a political conversation could be tricky because if you have the wrong conversation with the wrong person, your job could be at risk. So I think it's kind of scary for some people to reach out at work, because that is, again, that is their place of work, and their livelihood depends on that. In some regards, also direction when it comes from management kind of helps with that. But then you have to figure out how to broach that conversation. When I did work in retail, it was after stores had opened up after COVID, and we would have a lot of people who were not comfortable, or I shouldn't even say not comfortable. They were very aggressive in their disagreement of the mask mandate. And our store had a mask mandate. And the owner of the store, after a rough confrontation with a customer, the owner of the store told me explicitly that I have permission to put someone out if they refuse to wear a mask. So having, you know, support of management in situations that can get a little bit tricky can help. But also, if a person's views and values differ widely from your own, you also have to be careful about almost pushing into the realm of harassment. Someone else brought up reproductive rights. I believe in a woman's right to choose. If someone is on the opposite end of the spectrum and they are thinking in the same vein of like kind of proselytizing at work, and they continue to talk to me about why, you know, Roe versus Wade should be overturned, how do you balance that line between having a political discussion with someone who doesn't agree with you to then kind of like harassing a coworker? So I think that kind of makes it tricky for people to be willing to have those conversations when their livelihood is on the line.
I
Or
think
could be on the
that's,
line.
yeah, I think that's a good point. And it actually gets to kind of, I know that we're running out of time, but you know, I think when Pepper was talking about raising things in work, he was probably focused on, you know, some of the examples that he provides with respect to nonpartisan activity, voter registration, for example. And he talks about examples where restaurants and small businesses were on board with simply making voter registration materials available and making it a topic, because, you know, voter registration is nonpartisan unless somebody tries to turn it into partisan activity, you know, which is tricky. But I'll just jump into the next question. Pepper states that voter registration is nonpartisan activity. Are there some other nonpartisan activities that would promote democracy that maybe we can use our parts of our footprint to promote. And have any of you people have mentioned like meet and greets or meals or things where, getting together. Are there other thoughts, with respect to nonpartisan activity? Go ahead, Peg.
Thanks, Jamal. I noticed this pointedly when Obama was first elected. And I was running educational programs at a health clinic in my neighborhood. And we were right next to a public housing building, apartment building. And our local polling place had vans running from the clinic to the polling place and giving people rides. Didn't matter what way, who or what, how you were voting, as long as you got there and voted. And I think giving rides to the polls is an important part to be able to help engage a higher level of voters. Or even having extra voting registration locations, libraries, churches. It's not a partisan activity, it's a civic activity. Maybe even grocery stores, or a place where a large number of people would go, where you could get a good cross section, maybe even a public gym.
Yeah, great points, Peg. Kathy, I'm going to ask you to unmute.
Unmute. Am I unmuted? Yes. Okay.
Great.
One thing I did, and I was chair of my Democratic Party for years, but what I did is I made a very general advertisement, or got people to come, and it was more or less just in case you didn't understand terminology, or what certain rights were, or what narratives, I mean, we had mostly Democrats there, but you could come no matter what you were, or if you were in the middle of the road or what. But a lot of people I know do not understand some of the terms and some of the what do you mean by this right or whatever. And I think that if you make it so that you could have an activity or something and invite outsiders, everybody to come to it, to talk about just those type of things, or about just making sure that they understand what's going on.
Thank you, Kathy. And so, and that is another point that's raised in the book. Registration is just part of it. But, following up with the people that you engage with, like Robin does, in terms of being available to tell them a little bit about who's doing what, or what initiatives are out there. That kind of education beyond just the registration is another way to follow up. And that continued engagement is also nonpartisan. Other thoughts on this before I turn it back over to Wes? Okay, Wes, well, I'm going to turn it back over to you. I know that we did have one more question there. We probably don't have time to get into it right now, because I know you probably want to do the wrap up. Yeah, I'll just say that the last thing that we were going to ask about was, in the book, David Pepper notes that there are some municipalities that actually put quite a bit of effort into encouraging voting and voter education. If your community is not one of those where you see that, that's also something that you could do on a nonpartisan basis to push for them to put resources towards that. But I'll turn it back over to you, Wes, to see if you want to field some questions on that, or if you want to go through our wrap up.
Yeah, we're gonna wrap up here. I will say one thing that I loved that our county party did is Nebraska voters chose to bring voter ID to our state. And so we spent a lot of last year just calling voters, particularly those who don't always vote, in primary elections or off-year elections or like just city elections, to letting them know about that. And people were really thankful for the calls because they didn't, because they're not paying attention to the news like I am. And so that's just one thing. Voter education is huge.